are you?
We are on the other side of the planet. I'm like, you are in the future. Actually, you are in the future. Like,
We are Thursday morning down here. I got to tell you, Wednesday night into Thursday morning is fantastic. You're going to really enjoy it.
It's going to be a good day. So this means the world, the globe is still there. We still function. We're still okay.
So,
all right, cool. How are you doing? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for joining me. It's so great to see you and really appreciate your time.
Of course.
You and I had a very quick Zoom catch up prior to this stream, and I could see the room that you were in on that Zoom. I can't see as much.
Yeah, wait, let me turn this around a little bit. Well, before on Zoom was a little wider, but it's just like the right vibe. We end up spending so much time at the studio that if you don't feel good on the environment, it's a problem. You need to just feel comfortable. There is a point. You need to stay on a state of flow. You need to just function without anything that can distract or take your energy or could give you bad energy. So I think the environment is so important.
So what did you do when you were, because this is Studio DMI that you're in now, like when you were setting it up?
This is one room of Studio DMI.
Right. So when you were setting it up, what were you really conscious of doing to make sure that that flow was intact?
Right. Good question. So when we bought this building after moving around different studios, different rooms in town for like many years, we ended up being a beautiful hotel. We had a studio inside the Wynn Casino. It was fancy, but I felt going to a casino daily was strange. So over time, it's okay. Our dream is to have an actual standalone building that we can just like from the ground up, literally no flooring, no nothing, just build something that makes sense for us. And we had 4,000 square feet, which is about 2,500 of studio space and 15 of office space and lounges. So we have 4 rooms. We have Studio DMI, and then we have Studio R, which is our recording production space. Studio D is our Dolby Atmos room. Studio M is this room, which is a very minimalistic, small desk, incredible sounding room. And then we have Studio I, where I do all my mixing and mastering work. And so that's Studio DMI. And then it's kind of unique because we're like about 15 minutes from the craziness of Las Vegas Strip. But when you're here and you close the door, quiet, silence. So it's perfection.
Yeah. So acoustically, what in that room that you're in there now, for example, when you're just listening, what acoustic things did you have to get right? Mistakes that you'd made in the past, which you didn't want to repeat?
Yeah, well, starting from scratch, the first question to our acoustician was how big we should build this room to have a perfect ratio when we actually work inside the room to have enough space to feel comfortable after the treatment. Because usually when you treat a room, you make it a 20% smaller, 30% smaller. So this room in front of me, I have a wall. There's actually 3 walls. We have about like 5 feet of nothing, where the goal and the roof, so the ceiling is like 14 feet, pull down to 11, but then go down to 9 with a lot of treatment. So the way I can describe the sound of this room, nothing come back to me. So I have speakers coming to me, and then the normal scenario on the studio at home, on a no-treated room, you have a lot of reflections. You have a lot of cancellation points happening between different corners. You have phasing. This room, you feel that everything stopped with you and the low end goes away, never come back. So wow. I think we can make the best decision a low level, equally to any type of decibel. If I work 75 decibel as a standard level and I decide to push to 100 or to go down to 50, I still have like a really flat response of the room, which is very important.
Yeah. What did it mean to you to get that complex built as per your specifications? Was that a dream?
Well, we trust experts. So Gavin is our acquisition. He won like for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, best studio in America. It's one of those guys that is very knowledgeable, but then when we give to somebody like him, like almost like a open space to say, do whatever you want to make it sound right, without any type of condition that somebody else before you made a decision and now you need to live with that decision or work around. This was just more like, hey, we have this empty space, let's build rooms in the best possible way. And then we had Focal did an amazing job, give us like the right gear, and everybody else, it's just like, I think they have the same philosophy that we have. We just purely generally love audio to the point that everything that's part of the audio, from the space, the room, the gear, it's just like a passion project. You know, if it's a business, doesn't matter. Start from a really big passion, you know.
Yeah, you must have had some, when you think about the credits that you've worked on, you must have had some incredible moments in any of those rooms. Is there one in
Yeah.
particular which sticks out to you when you walk into, say, the room
Oh.
you're in now? This
Oh
happened.
yeah, so we had a moment, actually fantastic. No, actually not too long ago, about like 4 or 5 months ago. So we did a Drake album, and it was like probably our most fun and more like, I would say, passion project for the past 6 months, a year, where a lot of was really into that album. We like very committed to the sound and be able to get everything done. An album that we had a release date, but nobody has the date. We did, so we have to work towards that deadline. So it was like a mission. So, and literally in this room, we had a first phone call with 40, which is Drake producer from day one and good friend of mine now. And so when he like just casually pitched the idea, say, do you guys want to mix Drake new album? I say, let me think about it. I don't know. Say, yeah, I thought about it. Yeah, I'll do. So and then funny, because I was standing there with the speakerphone, and Rob, other engineer, Studio DMI, was sitting here, just like literally on the floor. I was like, yes, let's go. Then then I spent about 5 days in Toronto working with a team with 40 to kind of optimize and get the stems in the best possible way. And then from that point on was just like the most intense 40 days, 45 days of mixing nonstop, sleeping on the couch, jumping another session. Yeah, one of those.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
It's that intense. That, I mean,
Well,
wow.
the thing is this. So when you have a surprise release on an album, not like it's planned, but it's not planned in the sense that you have a year in front of you, you have 6 months in front of you, you're gonna execute it for the release date. There is a pressure, because every day should be, it's a day, it's a song, you want to move forward, and then involved, of course, they want to just be part of decision making of the album. So there was a lot of like overlapping, so working one song, mixing one, prepping the second one, get a second one, waiting for stems, start the third one. So it was intense. I mean, we are trained for this, we do this for many years, and it's fine. It just,
Yeah.
at that level, you need to be extremely, you're more almost like, I can describe this way, you're playing on Sunday basketball or football, but the entire week you're working towards that day, training and get mentally ready, and just sleep, and then eat quality food, and then don't overstress. So that was kind of like the vibe during that time. Just make sure that we optimize ourselves in a way that we can just do the best for the record. And the record,
Yeah.
when it's out for the life of music, and the artist will carry this record for a long time. And then most likely 99% or maybe more of listeners, billion listeners already. So a lot of those people, they're gonna like it, and they're gonna probably attach that record to Drake himself, not to me. So I'm sitting
Right.
on the backstage. If I think about it, I'm a backstage,
Yeah.
experience what's going on, but then I want to make sure that I do the best for the artist. It will kind of like carry this record for a long time. So that's the point.
Yeah. How do you sustain yourself during those intense, you mentioned about 40 days of really
Yeah.
intense work, sleeping on the couches? How do you
It's a
maintain?
Yeah, it's a teamwork. So here at Studio DMI, we have a system. So we kind of create a strategy for a project where there's a prepping time, there's a mixing time, there's a mastering, that is like notes, and this rotate between myself and Rob. So I was mixing, and Rob on a different time will come in and just do final touches, or anything was related to replacing stems or parts, and I will start a new mix. So it's a rhythm. And then the main thing is not get into a kind of like a space and a zone that you want to stay in during that time. That's also why an album is a different commitment than a series of singles, because it's an album you want to basically stay with the flow, especially an album at that level with like such a tight schedule. So it's mostly quality sleep enough. I know it sounds weird, but don't eat too much sugar. Avoid spikes of glucose. Avoid any like too much carbs. They make you feel, you give us a sense of hype, but then you kind of like crash. So be consistent, drink a lot of water, take breaks. I have a routine when I'm mixing where every group that I'm doing, if I do drum, bass, synths, that's a time between those to walk, drink water, breathe, go back. So I have a rhythm through the mix.
That's amazing. I've never heard anyone talking about their mixing
I
and
do
their
that.
studio, talking about diet and things like that. That's incredible.
I'm a little bit like crazy on those things, but it works for me. So why not? Yeah.
How long did it take you to realize that?
Well, I think I built a routine of trying, regardless of the project that I'm in, regardless the pressure of the record, to have like a discipline that my days start a certain way and on certain way. And if I do that, I will never be overwhelmed or in some way not be sharp because my lifestyle should like be very integrated with my studio schedule, and it should be one thing. So and that's also why I try to never commit for a mix end of the day, because I trust myself in the early part of the day more. So if I can, I go till the end, and then we have let's say a day or two before release the mix to the client, and then we just like sleep on it, come back the next day, have a listener point of view, almost like sit as a listener with the technical expertise that I have, and just write notes and just be kind of like, just be the A&R on myself, where it's just like, okay, what about this? So I like to do that. I like to just like commit the next day. And that's part of like having a routine. And also I think when you enjoy what you're doing, you risk to be sit for too long, which is not good. So I just simply have like notification on my phone as stand up. But mostly it's about between kick and bass mixing. I'm not kidding. Drums, synths, effects, and vocal. Those are like literally the breaks that I'm taking.
Wow.
You ever heard
Use
this
the
before? No. Yeah.
no. You used the analogy earlier that with Drake's record, for example, you're kind of backstage. You know,
Yep.
people are attaching the album to him. When did you first realize, growing up in Italy, when did you first realize that there was a backstage? There were people behind the music that you were listening to.
Oh yeah. Well, first of all, so I went to recording school when I was extremely young. I was the youngest one. I went like 16, 18, yeah, 19 years old. I finished. I did 3 years. And then during that time, I was so passionate about everything around the recording industry. And I was so young. So it was the between the analog and the digital was right in the middle of that. So, and at that time, I was so fresh and green that I was not really into one thing. I was just loving recording and just like mixing and just like using synthesizer, and then try to do everything, right? Just get my feet wet. But then I had like, I had a lot of respect for everyone involved to make a great sounding record, being like, I would say like a timeless record. So I remember listening Pink Floyd albums, try to really understand certain things, and then do my research. Back then there was no Instagram or Facebook. So check, like, okay, they did like loop with tapes. That tape would go around the room, come back. That's so crazy. And then I would just like try to dig deeper on everything to understand. So then I had my production career, but I was very passionate about the mixing and mastering. I was passionate about post-production all the time. and even a record that I was producing, people say, wow, your record sounds really good. I was really passionate about mixing and mastering. Then second part of my career, I just started focusing more and more on mixing and mastering, and my niche, which is dance music, became pretty big worldwide. Like the entire EDM scene at one point exploded. And then I was here in North America, I think the right time, where the scene was just like not mature enough, but I was there to help in some way with my expertise. A lot of producers, they now became my good friends. But back then it was just like a lot of people with a lot of very enthusiastic about a scene, but very new to the scene. But me being European, I was just being exposed about the same scene some way. So, and then, yeah, I feel the real, like, I would say, spike of the entire scene was just like the late, like 2008, 2009, when everything started to like blow up. And then Vegas, that I choose to be my city for not a strategic reason at all. I was just like loving it. It's like, wow, this Vegas place is cool. It's just not too far from LA, but it's fun. There's casino, but it seems pretty quiet. We're in the middle of the desert, so I picked for that reason. And then I find out a few years later that became the capital of dance music worldwide. So we have every day it's a Saturday, and every day it's like something crazy happening here. So obviously being here involved with so many artists, a lot of my clients, they're touring DJs, they actually play in Vegas a lot. So it's an opportunity of networking, opportunity to listen music together. So it's, you know, it's been a great choice, I think.
Yeah, you mentioned there was a comment which just popped up earlier. Someone saying that they used to see you play in the mid '90s.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
On my
So you have,
on my past life, on my past life. Yeah. So
yeah,
yeah, I had. So that's another thing about what I'm doing today that I'm benefit from my early career. It was that a lot of my colleague engineers, great engineers, mostly they're drummers, guitar players. That's it. Guitar players and drummers, they become mixing engineer or master engineer for some reason. I don't know why. And they keep thinking, and I talk with a lot of those guys, they're like, they respect a lot. They're like, I'm not super young, but they're older than me. So I have a lot of respect. I ask about a lot of record, and they say, yeah, I'm thinking as a guitar player or a drummer when I mix. In my case, I know I'm thinking as a DJ when I mix. So I think mixing with dynamics and with like a build up and just like a journey you have when you DJ from intro to outro of a song. So I think this gave me more like, it put me more in tune, in sync with my clients. The fact that I think as a DJ when I mix or master records.
yeah. You mentioned that move to Vegas and to America. What was that like? Did you have contacts there already? Did you have to hit the ground running and establish yourself? How
Well,
smooth was it?
yeah. So I did in a good way. So at the end of the 90s, I was in a place where it's like, okay, I need to pull the plug. I did everything super young. I was just like exposed to the music business, but I was so young. So the moment that I was like 28, I was just like ready to take a little break. So I came here and I did like the 3 months of just chill, understand, enjoy the place. But after the first month, I start thinking and see the place from, okay, how about if I think as I live here, how am I gonna feel about this place? So I believe the challenging part was like, okay, as an Italian, then I come and then I penetrate a small scene, because even if the music scene is pretty big, when you talk about engineering and mixing and mastering, it's a small niche. So I did, okay, what about if I keep adding my European clients as my core clients, and then I just choose to live to another place of the world? And that's what it was my approach. I would just literally keep working with Europeans, and then slowly start to, especially when the EDM scene start to really take and grow in America, start to help some independent producers. Now, some of those guys, independent back then, now they're top DJ in the world. So it was just like, to me, generally try to help. And then certain cases, and then I talk to a lot of my students now. I teach workshops and I do masterclass, and they ask me, hey, so how you approach, so what is the strategy to go to an artist and say, hire me to mix your record? It's not that. To me, it was more like, listen, the music you're doing, I understand the music really well. I think I can help you. I can generally think I can help you to make your music sounds better, improve the quality of your music, improve your vision. And then, so why not? And then I used to do is like, somebody has a record that's doing pretty well, and I say, I love your song. I understand the song is out. The next one, send me stamps. I have some ideas to share with you. And then I was listening a lot of little mistakes here and there on current records. I say, oh, I can help this guy on the next one. So that's how I started that way. And then I think the kind of the key point was like Steve Aoki, that he had a label called DMAC. I did a remix. So I did a mix down for a remix of one of Steve's record. And Steve's like, why this record sounds so loud, so clean, so good? Who's involved in this? So, and they reached out to me. And then Steve, at that point, DMAC started to really take off. And then I remember after a couple of singles that I mixed for him, he's like, I'm going to work for the first like big EDM album in North America. I said, wow, that's awesome. That's challenging. And then that album became like at a Grammy nomination, this Dance Record of the Year, and was a big budget album on Ultra Record. It was like my first kind of entry point on a more, I would say, mainstream, dance music level here in North America.
Yeah. Where does that confidence come from? That you were just talking about, you would just reach out to people and say, hey, next time you're releasing a song, send me the stems. I reckon I can do something. You obviously have a real confidence. Where did that come
Well,
from?
I would generally feel, so again, small scene, circle of producer between LA, Vegas, and then I became friends with some of those guys. Imagine everyone, I don't want to mention names, but some of those names are really big right now. They started from somewhere. Like they start with a passion of making music and play shows. So, and then for me, I met those guys playing shows, play their own music. And I say, oh God, I think this can sound better. I feel they're missing on this. So to me, it was generally like hang out, become friends, and say, I want to help you in the next record. It was not a business thing. It's not about how much you're going to pay me. It was more like, I can make a contribution. I can contribute to your record doing this. Now, I think another big point was the touring career. A lot of those guys back then, it was not a thing. It was not about, oh, I'm making record as a business card, and then I'm going to travel the world using my record, not really to generate income from the record sales, but to generate a library that I can perform. So it was new. But then when that happened, the role of a mixing engineer like myself became very important, because now somebody can be on the road 20 days in a month and still be constantly releasing record with consistency. Very hard to do it if you don't have somebody like me. So I was literally backstage at the studio, very, very sharp, very focused, and just make consistent mixes for those guys that keep going crazy on touring without see any problem of having record out. It was just like a machine of release records. So for them was best of both worlds. I'm touring, I have like a very on point release schedule. That's all.
Nice. And you think about some of the, the credits that the albums that you work on now. You mentioned Drake earlier, and I think we featured Tupelo Shuffle from the Elvis soundtrack.
Yeah.
What was working on that song and being involved in such a big production?
Tell you, so that came from Diplo. They co-produced the song. Usually Diplo just throws songs on me, and without even I don't even know who's the artist, feature artist, singer. I just got stems and we prep. And then was like, ooh, I hear like something like, this is Elvis? What's going on this track? So, and then we understand more about the project. I was so excited. Almost like felt that I need to be very careful the way I touch that mix, because there is like samples from the record from like the late 50s with current drums. It's so cool. Like I had so much fun working on that. Then there's a funny story about that. So finished mixing, and then me and Rob were talking. It's like, man, I can see the movie ending, and then the titles come down, and I can hear the songs coming up. So now finally watch the movie, and then ending part, the credits, and then the songs come up, like literally like that. It's like, it's
nice. What was that like? I'd like to see that in a theater like that.
What's awesome. I had another experience for a movie called Turbo with Snoop Dogg. it was a similar experience. So Turbo was like animation movie, and Snoop was like the voice of that. And I mixed several tracks on that movie, and I had the same feelings. Like, that's so cool, because you hear music in a different, for a different purpose. So the music is matching what you see. You give a certain energy. It's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you, when you think about the people that you work with, you mentioned Snoop Dogg just there. Obviously, we've spoken about Diplo and Drake, and all these people presumably have different ways of working, different personalities. Have you figured out shortcuts to try and figure out how to operate with different personalities and really identify quickly what it is that they're after?
Yeah. It's a great question. I feel there is two main approach on mixing. One is I take the song till this point, and then I hit the ceiling, and now I need somebody else to kind of refine and bring my vision to life and just finish the record. Or option number two, I work in a demo mode where I work almost like a band. I'm producing in the way that a band in the 70s and the 60s was recording. And so that's the two approach. So I have that one, they're actually understand production. They start doing start mixing during the production phase. Now I'm taking over, and I keep going till the end. And then the second one, which is we just focus on the writing, we focus on the core of the song, and then we need somebody else to build a mix. So, and I find myself between those two cases. In some of my clients, they're like option one, some option two, and some little bit in the middle. But I feel that over time, more I build a relationship with a producer or an artist, and more they're going on option two, where I'm kind of like use and squeeze Luca more what I can bring to the record. Yeah. Now, in certain cases, we build our own reference. So if I do a Diplo album, we kind of start with one song. We make that song kind of like the guideline for the entire album. So we spend more time on one song. And that is the part that me and the artist, we are more involved on just making decisions. Say, hey, the aesthetic of the song. So we want to go for bright, intimate vocal or like big reverb. And so where we're looking to do. And we make that decision. Then after that, the artist can be a little bit more detached, and I keep taking over, keep going on the album. So one thing that makes, I think, me and this entire Studio DMI different, that we are custom about the song and the vision. So there is a lot of, I'm a mix engineer, I'm a master engineer. That's my process. In our case is no, we finish song that can be a 2% or 50%. We do everything the song needs to be the best version of that song. So in some artists, it's a long conversation at the beginning about I'm changing my style. Things happen a lot on dance music where I go, hey, now I'm getting more mature. So my style is evolving in this direction. And we talk about the vision. We talk about other tracks. We talk about what can be a potential Spotify playlist that my song need to fit into that playlist and feel cohesive with the other songs. We talk about those things. Doesn't mean we're going to copy other mixes. It means we want to penetrate that and just feel legit, feel right on that space. So that type of conversation help us to understand what direction we want to go. And with some of our artists that we follow for like 10 years, like Diplo is like from 2011, there's been so many times of like changes or like developing new sounds, new idea, where this happened a lot. So what makes, I think, our position different than others, that's what we do. We kind of like sit next to the producer and we try to maximize. We know ego, we know like, oh, we do this, you know, we pull all the fader down, we do it our own way. No, we do what the song needs, what the artist needs to get the 100% of that record, essentially.
Yeah. Wow. There was a question which just popped up where someone was asking, what is your go-to plugin?
Well, well, over time, I love to use less and less. And I like to have less options and just focus on my go-to tools, which is a mix of my own plugin. We made plugin Studio DMI. So 50% of plugin that we made between us and acoustic audio. So my go-to plugin, if I think about is like Diamond Color EQ, Lift, uh, Space Control. So those like but I will build those plugins, so they're close to us. But then also I like to use Fat Filter, Pro Q. I like to use Saturn. So but I minimize the number of plugins because there is a point. If you go through a folder with like 200 plugins, you scroll. The moment you do that, you start to just go out of the song. You want to stay on a state of flow and just pick what you like, execute an idea, and move on.
Yeah.
There is a analogy I like to do that I think represents a lot of my approach. So I work with a desk. It's like 3-bay desk with everything in front of me. I don't have to turn around. I don't have an EQ on the side. It's only right there, right? So, and I think like if you drive a car, and I'm in Italy, you need to learn how to drive with stick, right? So you go 18 years old, you learn how to drive. So you get a car, and then you go driving school, and then you're starting like first, second, you need to push, or you hit the brake too slow, too fast. Then now if somebody talk to you, you say, hold on, I'm driving, I can't talk. 2 years later, you can have a full conversation and then talk this and listen to radio, speakerphone. If somebody say, so can you tell me what you did driving? You turn second, third, say, I don't know, I was just driving.
Yeah.
So that's what I do when I'm mixing. I'm not trying to be rational. It's like, okay, right now, I'm going to grab one plugin. I'm going to push this. I just follow my instinct, and I'm able to have a conversation with somebody in the room and mixing. So that's kind of like for me, the best is just to do in a way that it's just like natural, and then feel that almost like I have a vision. I hear a sound, and I know what I want to achieve with that sound. I grab the tools. They might be like hardware, EQ, a compressor, or a plugin, and I just execute. And rarely I change my mind. I almost like predict what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And this is happening just because I mix one record every day. So that's like muscle, that I'm building, and then I'm just execute that.
Absolutely. Mixing a record every day. I mean, how do you make sure that you're approaching each song differently? Because you're in that habit, mix. How do you make sure that you just don't fall back on? Is it just what you just mentioned there? Just going
Yeah.
with your...
Oh, that's a good point. So in case if I have multiple songs from the same artist, I always to keep those together to stay on with the same artist. If I have like an EP, for example, and then based on the schedule that the studio that Jacob built, we try to make it that is kind of strategic, where creative mixing, usually it's like something that I like to do beginning of the week. And then I spend maybe a day or 2 days on something. And then when we do final stage of mastering, I'm like a case of hybrid mixing and mastering engineer. So I do mixing, I do mastering. So in that case, I separate those different mindsets.
Right.
And I'm able to navigate through like pretty well.
Yeah. One of the great initiatives that you've come up with is My Mix Lab, which I think is so great in terms of giving back and trying to help. I imagine it's a very competitive community, so it's great that you're actually doing something to assist people. How did My Mix Lab come about, and what does it entail for you?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm extremely passionate about mixing technology and the techniques that I'm learning myself, and I love sharing. That's always been like that. There is, I think, two types of engineers. Some engineers, they like to keep it, say, okay, that's what I do. And I don't like, in my case, I just love sharing. So I always that passion. So I did a lot of workshops. Currently, I'm prepping to go on tour, and I'm gonna do like the Abbey Road Institute in Paris and Amsterdam classes. Do like an actual master class of 4 or 5 hours. That's what I love to do. But then I say, okay, I want to do something where if you can't travel, if you don't have a big budget, you still want to get something. So, and also see a lot of YouTube videos where I kind of disagree. I say, no, you don't want to share something that is actually off, that create an issue. So I say, what about if we build a very inexpensive $12 a month channel? And then My Mix Lab, that's what it is. We do one video every week based on everything we have up going on at the studio that catch my attention. Say, oh, I want to share this. We just capture great quality audio and video, and we share like 20 minutes of that. And and that costs like a cappuccino and a croissant every
Yeah.
month. But that, I think, it's a way to, I think, inspire young producers. We have 20,000, and those are a lot of students, a lot of people that just love audio, and we feel that it's just going to YouTube and guess if it's right versus us try to produce a good
Mm.
quality content. I think is valuable. And then eventually some of those guys, they love what they're learning and then apply on their own production. And some of those, they even start to have a career as a mixer master engineer. So it's fun. It's fun, and it's cool for me that I'm able to interact at any level, anytime. I'm always on Instagram. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like when you were coming up, did you have mentors? Did you have people that helped guide you? I mean, you've built My Mix Lab, which can act as that for people en masse. But did you have anyone that you could ask
I
questions of?
wish. No, really. Not really. Also, Italy, great country. Love my country. I love spending time in Italy. But as far as the music, there is no a lot of culture. Well, let me rephrase it. There is no a lot about, even more in the 80s and the 90s, about sharing uh, techniques and just affirmation of an engineer as a job, because back then was like one man band. It was more like you need to learn how to play an instrument. You better like learn how to record your session, and then you're gonna mix it, and then you're gonna just save money and just do it. So that was more like, I think, a UK and North America scene. The fact there's like an extra structure of people work behind the scene, and then you guys do an amazing job to actually highlight those guys, and that's why also we have this conversation where that's something that it's just current and it's amazing. I'm gonna just praise you guys a little bit, but you deserve it. So it's amazing that now you can find credit. Back then, I had to spend money to go buy a vinyl, look in the back, say, "Oh, that's the guy that mixed this record." So now I need to go find some magazine where they talk about the guy. Now maybe try to find other vinyls the guy mixed, study those. Imagine right now. Now I go on your amazing website, and then I'm able to Google the record that I like at the moment and find the recording engineer. Say, "Oh, that's the guy." Now I follow the guy. Now I learned that he's mixing or recording other record. So that's the part that I feel technology and the company like your company is doing for us.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you. I'm so glad that you can use that. Jaxsta is fulfilling that for you. That's wonderful. There was
Amazing.
saying, I'm still struggling making my vocals to sit on the mix. Any advice?
Join my mix lab. We have amazing videos, and this deserves a long answer. So, and there's no right or wrong. But one thing I want to tell, which is an actual answer of that question, is people tends today, unfortunately, to forget the importance of the source. So the quality of recording before everything, it's the starting point. So you take an average photo with a cheap camera or low res or no lighting, and then you go in Photoshop and you try to make this photo looks amazing. It's going to look a little bit better. We're still going to struggle because the source, the photo is not right. Or music is literally the same. If you want to get the best sounding vocal, start to capture the vocal in a proper way, which is proximity, type of preamp and compressor. Those things are essential. What we do mixing, we bring to the surface low level information up, which is good or bad. So when you have distortion or you have high frequency like peaks and spikes, those compression will bring up. So now we need to fight, without being too technical, we need to fight between de-essing, compression, multiband. We start to cut in pieces a waveform, which is not ideal. You do it if you really need to, but if you can go back and record an amazing sounding. So if you go to Adele, you go to any type of like older Mariah Carey, those are records that there is a lot of attention on the early stage. So properly recorded, Now it's just like compounding. Now we get better mixing and better mastering, and everything is just like exponentially better. I
Amazing.
hope
That's great.
the answer was right. I just, yeah.
Luca, you've been so generous with your time. Thank you, mate. I'll just ask you one or two final things. Is there a credit that you've been involved with that has really changed the way that you approach music, that you learned something so fundamental that it just changed the way you operated moving forward?
Wow, I love it. Love it. Oh my God. So many records, so many little episodes here and there, so many pieces of the puzzle that makes the entire picture,
Mm.
right? So um I will say, if I need to pick something, I would say Major Lazer first album was the most diverse and just open-minded album back then for me, where the challenging part was the mashup of different styles from dancehall to dance music to pop to R&B on one. So mixing wise, and then it was actually a 2012 album where my studio was not good as now, so I had to squeeze more my kind of my techniques, and me as an engineer dealing with. There was also emotional attached because the album as Lean On, the kind of like change, I think pop music and tropical make EDM pop one thing, so I was involved in that. There's also
Mm.
an interesting story. There's one. So Lean On, I actually recorded myself because Diplo say, hey, we have one song extra for the album. Can we come to the studio tomorrow? I thought like bringing stems, you're gonna mix the, oh no. So we need to record the second verse. It's like, oh God. So I called my friends and everybody was busy. So I ended up doing 11 hours of recording, comping, and quick vocal mixing. But then turned out to be like a 3 billion play, and Lean On became such a hit. But back then, it was just like working on a demo, use my recording skills from school, and actually Diplo give me a hard time saying, man, you're slow. Because I was recording and comping and say, I'm a mixing engineer. I'm not a recording engineer. But I mean, I was part of this big record. So Major Lazer, the entire album, including Lean On, is probably the one that's more attached to my heart for that reason.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Luca, thank you so much for your time. It's been so great to chat with you, and thank you for your support of Jaxsta, and
I
we
love it.
love what you're doing.
Love it. And thanks to everyone I see on the chat. I see so many familiar faces, and I'm sorry I was not able to answer everybody, but it was a great opportunity.
Thank you so much, Luca. Have a great rest of your evening. Bye.
Amazing. Take care. Bye.